Kan live to o. Link itu mo tontur. Mo.
RS.
Link ini itu mo.
RS.
Karon ton non link.
Hello.
What's up, link?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm connecting from my phone also because of some connectivity issue.
Okay.
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 Right. Thank you.
Okay.
Zoom link pakat matuma kala ton lo.
Charmi lo thon to me. YouTube link. Madam public kan thon ve lo kong YouTube link.
Are you sharing the YouTube link?
YouTube. Hello, ma'am. I have just sent you the YouTube link.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Welcome, ma'am. Sir, participant dangin don lu thei to tro. Kan la hong. Yeah. Sir. Participant how kan hon la hong lo deu ni. Akon thei te. Okay, sir. Kan lu thei la kan tia. Principal
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir.
Hello. Can you all hear me?
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
Good evening.
Yes, sir. We can
Good
hear.
evening,
Good
Haktea.
evening, sir.
Good evening, Grace.
Evening, sir.
Mama, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Sarkanale, ang lawan doon lalong ni mo. UVC. Oh. Su. Peneli sandon lukim ma kanin participant pala hon thai si ha kiro. Okay.
nó sẽ gọi là độ tận lòng cái không có truyền thông sao được luôn sao hết nó sai
Sai poi ron lalong lo.
Gmail ID gì cả check your email anh làm sao nó anh cái thôn sẽ thôn là rồi nó tốc độ sẽ anh được làm hoàn direct in cái thôn là cái mình cái còn thôn sẽ là tôi biết là ai rồi nằm ở tại đây nó còn cái nơi nó để có hiểu hết rồi Được tốt được. Hello, Miss Grace.
Yes, sir.
We will spotlight your video and we will just broadcast this meeting to the participants. All right.
All right.
So
Tell me when to start. It's exactly 6:30 by my watch. I think I can
yes, the panelists have already joined, and then I think we can start. But if you want, you can take 1 or 2 minutes for the participants to join.
Okay, right.
Let's wait for the participants to join for 1 or 2 minutes.
All right.
And then when we reach around 50 plus, we can start.
All right.
All right. All right. Yes, and yes.
Bánh xăng lẩu lo.
It's 6:30 p.m. here in India. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the international webinar on issues and challenges among children, prospects and intervention. This webinar is organized by the Department of Social Work, Hatton, in collaboration with the Department of Social Work, Mizoram University, India. Hatton is short for Higher and Technical Institute, Mizoram, which is an affiliated college of Mizoram University. Now, without further ado, let us inaugurate the program with a welcome speech from Mr. Vuansang Avansong, the principal of Hatton College, without whose patronage, enthusiasm, and motivation this program would not have been. Sir?
Miss Sari is having some technical problem.
Yes,
He will be back in. All right. I think
yes,
he has joined.
Okay, yeah.
All right, sir.
Thank you, leader. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor K.R.S. Sambasiva Rao, distinguished resource persons, our special invitees, my colleagues and friends, our host for today, respectable social workers, eminent citizens, and dear students, and all other participants. I bring greetings to you all from the Higher and Technical Institute, Mizoram. I congratulate the Department of Social Work in both our institutions for being able to organize such a precious international webinar on the theme, issues and challenges among children, prospects and interventions. The Bible says in the book of Psalms that children are a heritage from God. Yes, it is indeed an obligation for every adult to ensure that various issues and challenges in the lives of the children around us are recognized and addressed well. It is my pleasure to be a part of this very special webinar, and I take this opportunity to extend my warmest welcome to all our eminent speakers. I'm immensely enthused by your enthusiasms, and I welcome all other participants and attendees. Remember that this webinar is meaningful because of you all, and I'd like to request you all to take active part in asking relevant and suitable questions. And I'd also urge you all to show your cooperation by being present through to the end. It is you who can make this webinar a successful one. And I wish you all a very wonderful and productive webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We now move on to the keynote address. Our keynote speaker tonight is Dr. Henry Zodin Liana Patsuao. He is an assistant professor in the Department of Social Work, Mizoram University, and has several research publications and authored many books, produced quite a number of PhDs and MPhils, and has presented papers and lectured at numerous state, national, and international levels in various capacities. His specializations include family and child welfare, child rights and protection, and disability. He has been the brainchild to certain policy documents related to child rights and child protection at state and international levels. He has coordinated and directed numerous research projects such as rehabilitation services for the disabled, Juvenile Justice Act, trafficking in persons, safety and security of schools, and HIV/AIDS. He has been and still is instrumental in promoting child rights and child protection and the rights of persons with disabilities in Mizoram. He has many laurels to his name, and these are just to mention a few. His name can be found in the Limca Book of Records for establishment of the first Center for Disability Studies in a central university in India. And just recently, he received the Inspirational Scientist Award by the VD Good Professional Association, Kolkata. May I now call upon Dr. Henry Zodindiana Patswao for the keynote address. Sir, Dr. Henry, if you're ready.
Yeah. Hello. All right. Good evening to all participants, to our respectable Vice Chancellor of Mizoram University, and also to the principal of Hatim, and resource persons, and all the participants around the world, across the world, as well as in India and in Mizoram. To talk about the issues and challenges relating to the prospects and intervention in children in only 10 minutes would be quite far-fetched, because it's the topic itself is a very numerous one. But so I was thinking today about what would I cover. The issues and challenges related to children in particular would definitely start from the womb of a mother. It's not only after birth that we consider a child to be a child. So the area of childhood starts from the onset of conception, and all the aspects of problems and issues relating to the time, the period when a mother carries, a baby in her womb, till the age of 17 years. That is when a particular person has not yet achieved the age of 18 years. So we are talking about reproductive. Let me start with reproductive child health, where various issues relating to infant mortality, infant morbidity, all these things are one aspects of looking into this area as far as issues and challenges are concerned. And as far as the prospects and interventions are concerned relating to this particular area, we have various schemes, and various international covenants in the likes of from the United National Human Rights declarations, where it urges different countries to respect various schemes, programs, and right-based approaches related to the protection of children, as far as reproductive child health is concerned. And even in India, we do have we do have various schemes that actually focuses on the health, the maternal health, as well as the the health of infants, during the prenatal as well as the postnatal stage. And apart from that, we talk about the issues of neglect, the issues of abuse, and under the various aspects of abuse, we are talking about emotional abuse, physical abuse, and of course sexual abuse, that is quite very much rampant, and is seen as a very sad to say, one of the daily news that we hear about in India, and also which is a very has become a real issue even in Mizoram today. And we talk about children with disabilities, and so there are numerous challenges, and music problems associated with these, with children today. And as our principle of the Hatim said that, in spite of the fact that it has been written numerously in literatures as well as religious texts, across religion, that children should be taken care of, children should be cared of by adults. We are going it's sad to say that we are going the opposite of the direction expected of us as adults. So and what I would like to say about the prospects as well as the interventions is that in social work practice, of course, in other disciplines and in other areas of profession also, we do have various methods, we do have various therapies, we do have various approaches on how such kinds of issues and challenges relating to children must be addressed. And in social work, we do have interventions at the micro level, where we deal with children individually through casework, what we call one very important methods, and we have this more enjoyable group work, where we place children in groups, and then we discuss with them about the various issues, with the various problems that they are facing in their daily activities, maybe in school, maybe in family, maybe in communities. And we do also have community organization method, where we deal the issues of children at a more macro level, where touching issues faced by children in community problems, in communities, as well as in the state, as well as in the country. So there are various ecological perspectives that we touch in social work practice, on how we don't only focus on the child itself, because the problem of the child is not just a product of the child, but a product of society and the environment that surrounds the particular child. So whatever we make, as far as in terms of policy, in terms of rules, in terms of legislations, it has direct implications on children, and how how they will have a brighter future, and on how their protections will be actually confirmed by these various laws. And so as such, when dealing with these issues regarding children, regarding in the various stages of children, even in children there are different stages. We're talking about infant, like I said, the prenatal, postnatal, and then we're talking about the early childhood, we're talking about the late childhood, and then we're talking about the the storms faced by a child during the stages of adolescent period. So it's not an easy task for for a population more well endowed in knowledge, like for example adults, to just swim away the problems faced by children. So it requires a lot of deliberations, it requires a lot of knowledge, a lot of research. And I hope that this particular intervention, this particular webinar, this particular seminar as such, will go a long way in helping us understand about the challenges at the same time faced by children, and the prospects that are there to safeguard and protect the rights of children in general across the world, and as well as in India, and specifically in Mizoram. So with that, I think I will just end this particular keynote address as a result of of course lack of time. It's just 10 minutes that I have, and then I will be presenting a paper in the next session on rights, and on the issues regarding to the rights and protections of children. And there I hope that I will, deliberate more about, the various concepts relating to it and the various aspects on what are the challenges faced by children and what are the prospects, and of course, the interventions made, specifically in the area of this particular webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sir Henry, Dr. Henry, for that interesting keynote. Just within 10 minutes, he was able to cover and introduce the webinar. And I think all of us are looking forward to his session. In a few minutes, we will begin the technical session. So we look forward to that. Now, may I call upon Professor KRS Samba Siva Rao, our constant source of support and under whose sanction we are able to organize an international level seminar like this. I call upon the Vice Chancellor of Mizoram University.
Good evening, everyone. The organizers of this webinar, the Mizoram University Social Work Department, and also the Hatim College management and staff, principal and faculty members, and invited speakers, and all the participants. It was a wonderful occasion for me to participate in this webinar, which is a very pertinent topic presently, which is very important because of the present COVID situation. Also, the children are in tremendous stress, and they are facing a lot of challenges during this particular COVID situation. It is very important to mention here, India has got innumerable problems when concerned with children. More important is the rural population, the urban population. If you just have, when compared with how much of child population we had, just it is expected around 18 to 20 crores of children population is been present in India. It is as per the census of 2016. Out of this population, 90% of this children population was living in rural areas. Around 13 to 14 crores of population was living in rural areas, and remaining 4 to 5 crores of population was living in urban areas. And the issues of challenges and issues and challenges are different from both urban and rural areas. And in many situations, India is facing a lot of problems. Once upon a time, before a decade almost, there are more than almost 80% of the rural population has to face a lot of child deaths before attaining to the age of 5 to 8 years because of lack of medicine, lack of facilities, and lack of nutrition, proper nutrition, and lack of there is the child nourishment, and also many issues, particularly vaccinology and health issues. A lot of mortality used to be there, around 70 to 80%. That has been reduced to almost 21% now because of the more advanced facilities in India. And it was really improvement. There is a lot of improvement in infant deaths in India. India has got a tremendous scope for youth, but particularly in the whole world. India is going to be the even NEP, National Education Policy document also says that India is going to have the largest composition of youth in the world in the next decade. India is going to be the most high populated state of youth population. And it is going to lead the nation in such a way that it has got so many advantages that young population, which is going to dominate the whole country in leading the country. And the main problems which are being faced in the child children are malnutrition, particularly in rural areas, main challenge. And the malnutrition results in children growth and growth stunted and mortality and poor learning outcomes. Children will be having a lot of issues. They cannot, when stomach is empty, they cannot read well. So 38% to 40% of the children are having growth even stunted because of the malnutrition. And learning outcome has been almost half than the expected learning outcome of the children. The malnutrition is playing a very crucial role in children growth and development. And India is one of the country which has got so many innumerable problems where children particularly facing a lot of problems in child deaths, particularly every 1,000 children which we normally gets death, mostly there will be deaths of because of the malnutrition and also children lack of health. And usually the children mostly rural areas, slum areas, the in urban areas also poor families are facing this problem. And particularly financially and social economically weaker sections of the families, their children are facing these problems, particularly in our India. And if you just imagine the population percentage of children, particularly living in Mizoram contest, it is around 1,68,000 to 1,70,000 people. Children are there in India, where they are having a lot of issues, particularly malnutrition, and particularly in rural areas, they have several issues. But the death rate is not that much as compared with the plain area. And because of the particularly the quality of health, because of the hygienic environment and also clean and neat environment, the death rate is very poor, though malnutrition exists in this particular Mizoram area when compared contrary to the plain India. And improved water and sanitation conditions are more prevailing in Mizoram. And in the last 15 to 17 years, the Mizoram state and other in our country, a lot of improvement for child health has been improved, and this is what actually been growing very well. And this will be having a good impact that children will have good health and good education, and they will have lots of advantages because of this particular condition. And the other challenges which are actually other than this health and malnutrition, there are many issues of like medical issues, behavioral issues, developmental issues, learning issues, and mental issues. Like children, when they are not being properly given treatment, they will develop several medical issues from the childhood itself, and the medical care is not being there. They will be suffering with a lot of problems of polio, and vaccines results in several kind of diseases in the human health. And this vaccinology schedule has to be followed compulsorily to have a good health for children. And from the day one the children gives birth, they will be having a schedule of vaccinology. If that is not been followed, a lot of problems are being there. So this is going to be a big problem that particularly in the rural areas, this is not been covered very well. So when they grow up very well and with the same conditions and same health conditions, there will be several behavioral aberrations and behavioral psychological problems, and children grows with some kind of abnormal behavior, and they will be behaving differently in school, differently in society, and a lot of problems, psychological health problems they will be facing. This also has to be monitored. So the first fundamental point is they have to be given proper medical vaccination, because a lot of problems, health issues can be overcome. And these medical problems also can be avoided. And if those are not been properly taken care, the children will be developing several behavioral aberrations and psychological aberrations, and growth will be stunted. And a lot of developmental children growth will not be appropriate. Even though he was more than 20 years, 25 years, his size will be very stunted, and they will be looking like a 10 years old or 12 years old, like that, even though they were growing in the age. This is growth stunt has to be checked regularly. So it is because of any hormonal deficiency, or is it because of nutritional deficiency? Is it because of so many issues that has to be tested? And after that, next important one is learning outcome. Learning outcome is very concerned with school education and primary school, secondary school, and also high school education, and then for the secondary education. So in the primary school education, if they don't have any proper school education in the particular area, it will be going to be a big problem. And the children are not going to be competing with urban population, and they will be facing a lot of psychological issues if they are not being properly trained. Teachers are not available. These are various issues actually from the learning. In the learning outcomes, the rural population will be having a lot of backlogs when compared with the urban students. This is to be checked, and the government of Mizoram and other many places, the model high schools are coming up in all the areas, and the particularly national education policy is also because of this particular one. The primary education and secondary education and high school education, they are trying to make a big foundation, and with numeracy, particularly numerology, that mathematics is going to play a very crucial role. And this is going to play a very important role, that is to be taught proper. Teachers has to be recruited, and children phobia for the particular various subjects has to be avoided. But learning outcomes when they come to colleges and higher competitive studies, the competition is one of the biggest problem. Children will be facing a lot of problems. And after this, the challenges of employment studies and employment and the special needs of the children also comes under this particular one. And there are many family concerns, family livelihood, family income, and also if the family could not feed them properly, and these social issues also can affect the children education and children life in throughout the life. This is also has to be addressed, and the government has to have a proper care, proper addressing the various issues which are being faced by the children has to be addressed, and then only children will have a proper psychological strength and also education. These are various issues, and children has to be motivated, and learning outcome is to be strengthened. Then only the society can be addressed very well, and the particularly attraction towards the various bad elements, bad events, bad evils, and bad habits also has to be curtailed. And Mizoram is one of the state where actually the dry state that taking the learning, knowing the advantage of knowing the disadvantage of alcoholism and the small alcoholism, they banned the alcohol in Mizoram state, and it is a dry state. And because they know that many people are attracted towards that, and a lot of problems are being faced. And also the children psychological issues also been addressed by establishing the psychological clinics and psychological counseling centers, where this kind of problems are going to be. Even Mizoram University and other Pachingo College and other colleges in Mizoram, they are establishing psychological clinics in their colleges and helping the children to come up psychologically and mentally very good. This is one of the important point that the children has to be come up, and there's most important is the education needs, particularly social needs, economic problems has to be addressed by the government in some or other manner. Then the children grown up, children brought up will be good, and children health wise they are very good. Mentally they will be good, behaviorally they will be good, and even psychologically they will be good, and mental strength and everything, and they will become the strengthy children, and they will be the future citizens of the state and also country. So this various aspects has to be addressed. It is a comprehensive developmental strategy has to be adopted for children education, particularly children care in Mizoram and many other places where this is one of the biggest problem. So with this, I think I'm not going beyond my time, and I should be addressing only to the pertinent points of the theme of this webinar. And also, I hope I'm not going beyond my time. And I thank the Atim College for inviting me to address this webinar, and I congratulate Atim College for taking up one of the important pertinent topic for the societal need and societal help. And also the I can also congratulate the Social Work Department of Mizoram University in guiding them and also in motivating them to organize a very important webinar. I thank the principal for inviting me to this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for gracing this webinar with a very thought-provoking inaugural address. Thank you, sir, for your resourcefulness and apt observations on the pertinent issues and challenges of children, especially in the areas of health and education. May I now request the head of the Department of Social Work, Mizoram University, Professor Kanagaraj Yaswaran, to convey the vote of thanks.
Your mic is not working. Mic is not working.
Namaste, Chibai. Vanakkam to all of you. Honorable Vice Chancellor of Mizoram University, Professor KRS Sambasiva Rao, sir, who has given a very fitting inaugural address, who has been a great source of inspiration, motivation, and support in all our activities. I thank you, sir, very much on behalf of the Hatim College as well as our department. You know, whatever thanks we say, no, that will be very little only. But you have been very kind enough to sanction this program, you know, support this program, to give your concurrence to address this inaugural session. I am very much thankful. We are all thanking you. Thank you, sir. Then I thank our principal of Hatim College, Wan Sanga Wan Chong, who has given the welcome address today, who has been supporting the Department of Social Work in the college in all its activities. You know, the principals of Hatim College have been very much encouraging social work department. I have been observing, and I was part of committees also. Very colleges maintained very well. The students are maintained with all disciplines and higher values. I am very much thankful to the principal. Thank you, sir. I do thank the resource persons, especially Professor Usvinder Kaur Papliji, who was also part of our department's board of studies. Selection committees also, she was part of our selection committees. So, and today she is going to deliver her lecture as part of this webinar. Thank you very much, madam, for all your support. Thank you. And then I thank other resource persons, especially my colleague, Dr. Henry, who is really an expert in his own domain, particularly child protection, child rights. He is really an expert, and he is contributing to the Mizoram's child welfare policy implementation, child protection policy implementation and all, who has been into that, and he is very much into the practical implementation of JJ Act and all. So he is trying to integrate his cultural understanding and local wisdom with the policy implementation. And today it is his keynote address was very interesting, and I hope his other lecture also will be very much interesting. I know I have been as an ardent advocate of Bharatiyakarana or Indianization, indigenization. You know, we have been doing that actually. We need to understand our context, and we should fit our social work practice, social work education to the context. We should work according to the needs of the people and the context of the people. So in that way, in Mizoram, all our people we are trying to do, a national context also we are trying to do. So Henry is doing a wonderful work. I am very happy that he is part of that program. You know, from the day one, he has been part of this organization. So I am very much thankful to Dr. Henry. Another speaker we have invited is Victor Alexander from Canada. I thank him. I don't know much of him, but he is a very good scholar in that area. He has expertise. I was told by my scholars, especially RTC, Lalrem Ruata, and RSA. So they have told me, thank you very much, Dr. Alexander. And one more speaker is our own student who is in London now, Tessie. Is very good. She is working on autism of children. She has deep interest and commitment to the cause of children. She has completed her MPhil in NIMHANS, and she is doing PhD also, but right now she is in London. So I am very happy that all of you are making presentation here on a very important topic, child protection. Thank you, Ms. Tessie. I do thank all the administrative personnel who are involved in this from Hatim College as well as our university. I thank especially my own colleagues who are here, Grace Lalupui Silo, Dr. Grace Lalupui Silo. Thank you, Dr. Silo. Thank you also to my own students who are running the department there. RSA, Rosang Liana Kyangte, RTC Lalrem Ruata, Teboi also there, the department, I remember. So most of the faculty in the department of Hatim Social Work in Hatim College are our students. So I thank all of you. This program is a very good program. You know, I thank especially from the department for inviting us to be part of this program. It is not necessary that you should have, you have to invite us. In spite of that, you want to invite your parent department. So parents are also thanking to our children also. So it's not formality. We are always interested in your development. So we are interested actually in the development and welfare of Mizoram and Northeast India, and we want the development of Northeast India to be integral to the development of the country. So thank you one and all. Vande Mataram.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to all the panelists and the participants who attended the inaugural session. We are grateful to all the administrative and technical experts, the persons behind the scenes, the unsung heroes for the success of this program. We now come to the end of the inaugural session. Please stay tuned as we move on to the first technical session of our 2 days international webinar on issues and challenges among children, prospects and intervention. Tonight, we are extremely pleased and excited to have excellent resource persons. Participants are requested to drop their comments and queries in the Q&A box below for our resource persons, which will be discussed at the end of the session. I repeat, participants are requested to drop their comments and questions in the Q&A box for our resource persons. Please mention, because we have 2 resource persons tonight, please mention for which speaker is the question for or is the comment for, and these will be discussed at the end of the session. Now let me introduce you to our first speaker. She is Professor Ushwinder Kaur Popli, the former head of the Department of Social Work, Jamia Millia Islamia University, New Delhi, India. Among her numerous academic achievements is almost 30 years of teaching experience and research guidance. She has been serving the Department of Social Work in Jamia as well as in Punjabi University, Patiala, in numerous capacities. She has coordinated and directed several research projects, consultancy and evaluation projects as well. She is a trainer and capacity builder for countless programs. She has various publications in journals of national and international repute and has been honored with national and international awards and fellowships, to name a few. We are truly grateful to have someone with such laurels and experiences in our midst. May I now call upon Professor Popli to speak on the impact of COVID-19 on children.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor KRS Simbasiva Rao ji. It is a real pleasure to meet you again, though on a different forum. Professor Kanak Raj, thank you for a beautiful thanks that you gave and introduced me. Professor Evan Sangha Wenchuang, sorry if I am not correct in my pronunciation, and principal of Hatim College, and Rosang Lian, specifically because I think he contacted me and he has been coordinating me, invited me to this. I am very thankful to all the organizers of this webinar, and I congratulate you. Like your Vice Chancellor said, that this is a very, very pertinent topic of today, and it's a contemporary issue, that is the issues of children. In his talk, he has covered so many issues. So there is a plethora of issues and challenges for children. And out of all these, I have been asked to present my paper on the very pertinent contemporary issue that is happening today, that is COVID-19. COVID-19 has influenced our lives, not only of the children, to a great extent. It has brought our lives to stop still. And though with the different lockdowns that now they're happening, our life is expected to come back to its rails, but still it is going to leave a lot of impact on adults. So we can think how much they will be impacting the children. I hope that we will be very soon be going back to our old normal, leaving this new normal where we feel more comfortable, where we are able to provide much more to our children. So in this, to begin with, I would like to say that over the last few months, the mankind is facing one of its greatest crises since World War II. The world is indeed struggling with a major public health menace, the coronavirus disease 2019. This menace has forced a majority of the population to home confinement. The rest have engaged themselves rather selflessly in an uneven mortal combat against it, creating a situation of global socioeconomic deadlock. COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2, SARS-CoV-2, which was first identified in December 2019 in Wuhan, China, and has resulted in an ongoing coronavirus pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic is far more than a health crisis. It is affecting societies and economies to their core. It will most likely increase poverty and inequalities at a global scale. So far, more than 212 countries and territories have confirmed cases of COVID-19. On January 30th, 2020, the WHO declared COVID as a public health emergency of international concern. COVID-19, once in a lifetime phenomenon, is not just a public health crisis, but a crisis of human existence. It will carry a long-lasting impact on social, economic, behavioral, psychological consequences. Coronavirus, or what we say call as COVID-19, has put the world on a crisis footing, and children could be the hidden victims of this pandemic. As per the impact of COVID-19 on children policy brief by the UN, all children of all ages and in all countries are being affected, in particular by the socio-economic impacts, and in some cases by mitigation measures that are doing more harm than good. This is a universal crisis for some children. The impact will be lifelong. It is expected that, like in adults, children having pre existing illnesses like severe asthma, congenital heart diseases, malnutrition, obesity, etc., are at a high end risk for poorer outcome if they are infected with COVID 19. Although medical literature shows that children are minimally susceptible to COVID 19, they are hit the hardest by psychosocial impact of this pandemic. Being quarantined in homes and institutions may impose greater psychological burden than the physical suffering caused by this virus. School closure, lack of outdoor activity, irregular dietary and sleeping habits are disrupting their usual lifestyle and is promoting monotony, distress, impatience, annoyance, and varied neuropsychiatric manifestations. The children from marginalized communities are particularly susceptible to the infection and may suffer from extended ill consequences of this pandemic, such as child labor, child trafficking, child marriage, sexual exploitation, etc. The current death toll occurring due to COVID 19 will create millions of orphans in the months to come. Unfortunately, parentless child will become easy victim for abandonment, child trafficking, sexual exploitation, coerced begging, and child labor. Many will suffer imprisonment due to crime, unwanted pregnancy, unplanned parenthood, substance abuse, self-harm, and suicide. Before COVID-19, approximately 152 million children were already engaged as child labor, and almost 50% of them were doing hazardous work. COVID-19 will only uh, add to the numbers of several millions. Children from poor households have to engage themselves in income generating activities due to economic hardships, leaving school behind, leading to permanent disengagement from formal education. As the after effect of dropout from the formal education and to curtail the number of stomachs to feed, many families going through economic turmoil will arrange to get their daughters married off against lump sum dowry as early as possible, thus preparing the stage of child marriage. Not only preparing the stage of child marriage. Yesterday I was in a session like this and where we were talking about child marriages and a study that has done in Rajasthan. It has been found that yes, child marriages were reported in Rajasthan, but after this lockdown in the last few months, the number has really risen high. And what to talk of child marriage? We are seeing that in many places, marriages are being done quickly and girls are being married off as a burden to be shudged off the shoulders in this period when there are restrictions of getting people in marriage. 50 people are allowed. So this is an excuse, or this is a way people are finding that let us get rid of the girls who sometimes rather many times they are considered as a burden. Incidences of domestic violence, child abuse, adulterated online contents are on the rise. To understand the impact of COVID 19 on children holistically, we have to look at various dimensions. Let us look at the impact of COVID 19 on health of children. If you look at the direct impact of COVID 19 on children, it has been far milder than for other age groups to date. Preliminary data from observed cases suggest that hospitalization rates for symptomatic children are between 10 to 20 times lower than for the middle aged and 25 and 100 times lower than for the elderly. The share of symptomatic children who lose their lives to the virus in China has been estimated as 1 into 25,000, which is 30 times less than that of the middle aged and 3,000 times less than that of elderly. In contrast to the direct impact of COVID-19, the broader effects of the pandemic on child's health are significant. The reduced household income will force poor families to cut back on the essential health and food expenditures, drawing from historical relationship between GDP growth and infant mortality in the developing world. Thousands of additional child deaths could occur in 2020 compared to the pre-pandemic scenario. This would effectively reverse the last 2 to 3 years of progress in reducing infant mortality within one single year. Child nutrition, like the Vice Chancellor said, this is very pertinent issue, very vital concern. 368.5 million children across 143 countries who normally rely on school meals for a reliable source of daily nutrition must now look to other sources due to pandemic. Additionally, hastily implemented lockdown measures risk disrupting food supply chains and local food markets, which indirectly will impact the nutritional health of children. Water, sanitation, and hygiene wash services are also at risk of disruption by lockdown measures, posing further threats to children's health through waterborne diseases. Over 700 children under 5 die every day from diarrheal diseases related to inadequate wash services. And this number could rise sharply if existing services collapse. This is especially alarming given the critical role of hygiene in preventing infection and controlling the spread of COVID 19. If you look at the psychosocial impact of COVID-19 on quarantined children, we will say that there is an increase in the relapse of mental health problems in children who had a past history has been observed during the last few months. The effect of physical distancing measures, the movement restrictions on children's mental health represent another cause of concern. Children today face anxiety about the negative impact of pandemic on their lives, their communities, and uncertain future. For children facing extreme deprivations, acute stress can impair their cognitive development and trigger long-term mental health challenges. Being quarantined bears a plethora of psychological burden, varied neuropsychiatric manifestations, and psychosocial stigma. Home confinement imposes immediate and lingering psychosocial impact on children due to drastic change in their lifestyle, physical activity, and mental excursions. Children who are being quarantined in institutions are the worst sufferers as it renders them isolation from their parents. Children's proper well being depends not only on nutritional and medical care, but also on proper parental companionship. Thus, getting detached from parents in this crucial juncture may cause everlasting psychiatric consequences, including post traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, psychosis, depression, delinquency, and even suicidal tendency. Thus, the frontline physicians must be made aware for the psychosocial need of the quarantined children. As children miss the attention from parents and grandparents, limited human interaction, preoccupation with digital media, change in the way they interact with teachers, and parental preoccupation with the carriers are leading to depression among children these days. Doctors at the Child and Pediatric Psychiatry Department at NIMHANS noted that the peer pressure on children be spend more time gaming on the social media has also been on the rise in the lockdown period. Social media and gadgets are double-edged swords. While they're necessary for multiple activities, keeping a balance is crucial. Uh, the school closure, which has happened in the time of pandemic, also has a great impact on children. For children, school is not only an educational hub, it also is a home outside the home with plentiful free space. Schools offer window of freedom, scope of interaction with fellow and seniors, psychological solace besides providing pedagogy and scholastics. School plays a crucial role in promoting importance of personal hygiene, physical activity, healthy food, and body habits. Even a short-term shutdown of educational institutions and home captivity for children is indeed troublesome and anticipated to have detrimental effects on children's physical and mental health and shatter the sense of normalcy that schools usually provide. The administration had no choice when the coronavirus struck. They were left but to close schools nationwide to uphold the practice of social distancing, as there is no other definite prevention or cure for COVID-19. Since then, 188 countries have imposed countrywide school closures, affecting more than 1.5 billion children and youth. The potential losses that may accumulate in learning for today's younger generation and to the development of the human capital are hard to fathom. Rightly pointed by our esteemed Vice Chancellor that learning is one a very important thing for children for their growth and mental development. More than two-thirds of the countries have introduced a national distance learning platform. But among low-income countries, the share is only 30%. For many children living in destitution, both in the developed and developing and underdeveloped countries, school is also a place for nutritional support. And shutdown will intensify food insecurity, which in turn can be correlated with low scholastic accomplishments and ample risk to generate well-being of the students. Looking at the gender perspective, girls are less has having less access to digital technology than boys, where patriarchy prevails. Boys are preferred, and it is felt that they need more of the learning or more of education rather than girls. This may reduce their access to participation in online learning. Children with disabilities and special needs are especially hard to serve through distance programs. Another aspect which is very important to look on in the period of COVID 19 is the impact on the safety of children, which includes child abuse, domestic violence, and teenage promiscuity. Both direct and passive exposure of the children to abuse, psychological aggression, or physical punishment by caregivers at a very early age leave permanent wounds in the form of impaired development of brain and psyche, higher rates of psychosomatic and neuropsychiatric disorders, multiple substance abuse, and suicidal thoughts. Reports of child abuse, neglect, exploitation, and domestic violence are on horrendous rise during COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown, as it is a perfect time for the offenders to abuse children through several online platforms. Children are playing excessive and for uncensored time online with loneliness and unexciting daily routine. As most of the online social network companies have shifted to work from home mode, the regulation and review of potentially harmful contents have gone automated from manual. Thus, COVID 19 has opened up avenues for more cybercrimes, and criminals are taking advantage of suppressed cybersecurity at this hour. For most children, home represents a source of security and safety. But for a minority, the opposite is tragically the case. Violence by caregivers is the most common form of violence experienced by children. Children are also often witnessing the domestic violence against women, the rate of which has increased many folds in many countries during this pandemic time. Poorly planned or executed implementation of containment and mitigation measures present additional risk to children's safety and the violation of their rights. Enforced shutdowns, curfews, and movement restrictions have led to the sudden closure of refugee camps and residential institutions and the dispersion of slum dwellers, including children. Surveillance tools deployed to enforce quarantines and social distancing are very useful, but on occasions have violated children's right of privacy. This includes the public sharing of personal information of infected children or sufficient information for their personal identification. If the schools remained closed for a longer while and caused girls to drop out, we should anticipate an increase in the teenage pregnancy also in the year ahead. Poverty hits the children hardest and makes them vulnerable to COVID 19 exposure. So, COVID 19 has also impacted poor, refugee, migrant, and internally displaced children. An estimated 42 to 66 million children could fall into extreme poverty as a result of this crisis this year, adding to the estimated 386 million children already in extreme poverty in 2019. Marginalized communities, including migrants, homeless prisoners, are heavily affected by this pandemic, and their specific needs require to be addressed. Millions of children living in the detention facilities, immigrants camps, orphanages, and similar instructions lack liberty. Several million of refugees, asylum seekers, and internally displaced people with their children are confined in overcrowded camps with no arrangement for safe drinking water, food, and medical services. Many of these already harbor chronic ailments and multiple high risk behavior. Above that, they are receiving adequate health care. They are not receiving adequate health care and appropriate treatment, making them an even easier prey for COVID 19. We are looking that this close down is going for a longer time. What is the impact going to be if it is going to be for a longer time? The ultimate impact of the crisis on children hinges on how much time it will take for the pandemic to end. A longer struggle to contain the virus not only prolongs the pain caused by the pandemic, but raises the prospects that the pandemic impact will have lingering or persistent effect on children. For instance, the longer economies are on shutdown, the less likely they are to snap back. At the household level, struggling families will increasingly see breadwinners lose their jobs and be forced to sell productive assets in order to survive, with long running consequences for child poverty. The same holds true for other impacts of the pandemic. The longer schools remain closed, the less likely children are to catch up on learning and essential life skills that support a healthy transition to adulthood. The longer immunization campaigns are suspended, the greater and more costly will be the struggle to eliminate acute diseases like polio and to manage measles outbreaks, etc. For children caught up at the apex of this crisis, there is a genuine prospect that its effect will permanently alter their lives. Children facing acute deprivation in nutrition, protection, or stimulation, or periods of prolonged exposure to toxic stress during the critical window of early childhood development are likely to develop lifelong challenges as their neurological development is impaired. Children who will drop out of the school will face not only higher risk of child marriage, child labor, and teenage pregnancies, but will also see their lifetime earning potential abrupt fall. Children who experience family breakdown during this period of high end stress risk losing the sense of support and security on their children's well-being depends. Though we feel that COVID 19 has had mostly negative impacts, but COVID 19 has a brighter side too. COVID is a calamity. Is this a time to appreciate the light within? And is it a blessing in disguise? Out of the suffering have emerged the strongest souls, and most massive characters are seared with scars, wrote Lebanese American poet Khalil Gibran. Childhood is celebrated as most influential time for sprout of the human mind. This phase of life is distinctly cherished for learning the prevailing social decorum, values, morals, and principles, etc. Though momentarily the universe has become restricted to home and courtyard of the house, but in this confined milieu, their minds are still roaming free. COVID 19 Holocaust has snatched from children their school plays, kindergartens, amusement parks, and friendly touch. Unforeseen future is disturbing their minds. Interim detachment from school, friends, and teachers' playgrounds have eased avenues for self realization and unwrapping of inner world. Although this has been a time of forced dissociation from others and is considered as arid, their basic needs are being addressed even unknowingly. With the burden of modernization, expectedly, parents are rat racing and are failing to find quality time from their tight schedules for their children. Due to lockdown, everyone is staying indoors for 24/7. They are likely to spend abundant time and share space with their next generation. Using this time positively, parents should try to bestow habits of storytelling, reading and writing, drawing, singing and dancing, indoor playing, practicing yoga, etc. We have observed many people making videos, putting them on YouTube or WhatsApp or Facebook, and doing lot many things together with their family. Home education from parents and endearments are essential for positive growth of a child. This is high time for parents to infuse ethical teachings about importance of family, societal relations, healthy behaviors, etc. within the mind of their children. imperative for their forthcoming future, while carefully restraining the overindulgence of children in using technologies and social platforms. Parents need to see the work from home culture as an opportunity rather than a curse to interact with their children in regular intervals as well, because the child tends to feel left out when his parents are always distracted with their own activities when they seek assistance and attention from parents. This leads to making them frustrated and further leading to trust related issues, especially the teenagers as they grow up. Apart from all these devastating effects COVID-19 pandemic and the extended period of nationwide lockdown is offering the children with cues to look inside them and celebrate the inner strength within self to fight any obstacle, boosting their self-belief and confidence. Parents must help their children to see the bigger picture beyond this time of temporary confusion and chaos. Parents and teachers should make them recognize that life will be full of ultimatums. Today's hardships will pay off, and no mishap will stay forever. This is the time to help the children to embrace their imperfections, to practice controlling emotions, fear, anxiety, and act of kindness, thus creating an emotional hygiene. Going through these tougher times, children will learn selflessness and importance of we over me. Seeing and helping those in distress will remain as an invaluable lesson learned from this pandemic. Attributes ingrained so early in life expectedly will have everlasting effects on children, psyche, and make them more human for building a remodeled and rejuvenated society. Although the graph of formal education is showing downtrend, children will hopefully emerge from this misery with unmatched leniency, fallibility, solitude, and cognizance. It is believed that when you come out of a storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. That's what this storm is all about. So, like we said, that these are various prospects of the impact of COVID-19 on children. We also need to look at certain interventions. Being social workers, how can we ignore interventions? Rather, that is the main area where we work. Rightly pointed out, we work at the micro level, meso level, and macro levels. We work through casework, through group work, through individuals. I am sad to state that pandemic of fear, anxiety, and depression is going hand in hand with COVID-19. Children are already extra sensitive to emotional stress. In near future, a pandemic of childhood mental illness is upcoming, which will include the whole disease spectrum from children depression, anxiety disorders, childhood obsession, and eating disorders, to name a few. Children would generally bounce back later if they receive emotional support from caring parents in their lives, especially in tough times, like the present pandemic situation. This would teach them resiliency through skills and techniques that help them manage emotional stress. Not talking about the pandemic can actually make children worry more. Acknowledge their concerns, validate their feelings, and provide comfort and reassurance. To mitigate the psychosocial ill effects of COVID-19 on children and adolescents, proactive and targeted interventions can be proposed. Parents, social workers, pediatricians, psychologists, hospital authorities, government and non governmental organizations have major roles to play to make the mission successful. Some of the interventions are on the part of parents and family, we can say that parents need to respect children's identity, free space, spatial need, in addition to monitoring children's performance, behavior, and self discipline skills. Friendly interaction and communication between parents and children may help soothing their pandemic related anxieties and other physical and mental issues. This pandemic has provided parents an opportunity to reinforce the eternal bonding between their children and themselves. Involving children in household and family activities will improve their self sufficiency skills, and family relations will get revitalized, and children get psychologically strengthened. It is highly recommended that the parents of children staying at home should reduce their use of internet and TV by engaging them in physical activities with their children. Children who are separated from their parents should be given special care. Their nutritional needs should be taken care of. Their communication with parents should be increased via phone, and their access to mental health services should be improved. If you look at the interventions that can happen through school authorities or in the online learning aspect, the school authorities should plan restyling academic calendars and test schedules to reduce the effects of school closure. Not to overburden children, teachers must be taken into foremost consideration alongside. Apart from scheduled curriculum based study, basics of hygiene, maintenance of daily routine, need for indoor physical exercise can be promoted through the same online interface and platforms. To make online teaching a reality for underprivileged section of the society, government and other stakeholders must go many miles more to make sufficient arrangements of internet service and audiovisual gadgets. On the part of governmental and non-governmental authorities, I feel that the concerned authorities, including government and non-government organizations, should use all its resources to make sure to bring all the children back to their school by any means when the pandemic gets over. Ensure zero dropouts by providing financial support, especially to pandemic undermined families, and take pledge to make primary and secondary education free of cost. Also, the governments need to focus on the holistic health of children rather than providing only basic care. Run awareness campaigns against domestic violence and child abuse, and facilities for abuse survivors as well as for children requiring psychological support. Social sites should be more cautious to censor contents to impede online sexual exploitation. Cyber cells should be vigilant while reviewing content of online games, apps, online privacy settings, etc. Government should make operational strategies to provide mental health care for the quarantined children. Hospital authorities need to make arrangements so that the children can communicate with parents via audiovisual devices. Children from marginalized communities should be taken adequate care by all means like sanitation, hygienic atmosphere, basic amenities, and medical services. So to conclude, I would like that this is unprecedented crisis and it presents unparalleled risk to the rights and safety and development of world's children. Those risks can only be mitigated through unprecedented international solidarity for children and humanity. We have to work together to make progress on these three fronts: information, solidarity, and action. We have a chance to not only defeat this pandemic, but to transform the way we nurture and invest in the younger generation. But we have to act now. We have to act decisively and at very large scale. This is not a gradual issue, it is a clarion call for the world's children and world's future. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for a very comprehensive and gripping presentation covering all the issues of children based on a strengths-based perspective. We will leave the question and answer round, the interactive part, for later on after in the end of the session. I will call upon the next resource person. He has already been introduced in the inaugural session. So I request Dr. Henry Zodinliana Patsuao to speak on the topic child rights and protection. Sir. Dr. Henry, are you ready, sir? While we wait for Dr. Henry to prepare himself, I'd like to request all the participants to please drop your questions, your comments, not in the chat box, but in the Q&A box below. If you have questions for Professor Popley, please drop them in the Q&A box. Even as Dr. Henry speaks, if there is anything you want to ask him regarding child rights and protection, we request you to drop it in the Q&A box, which will be discussed later on at the end of the session. Earlier in the keynote address, we had introduced Dr. Henry. For those of you who were not present in the inaugural session, Dr. Henry Zodin Lianapatswao is the assistant professor in the Department of Social Work, Mizoram University, and is associated with, because he is instrumental to the promotion of child rights and child protection in Mizoram, and he has had several publications and research to his name in the areas of child protection, child rights, and disability. Dr. Henry, sir, whenever you're ready.
Miss, I think Sir Henry is having network problem.
Okay.
So he may need to wait for quite some time.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Miss,
Please.
can you just announce about the feedback form and things like that?
All right.
The feedback form. Yes.
All right. We have several registered participants who had registered for this international webinar, and after the end of day 2, that is tomorrow night, feedback forms will be sent to you. So once you fill up the feedback forms, you will receive your webinar certificates. So participants, please remember to check in your emails and fill in the feedback forms. Please bear with us regarding technical issues. The internet is not always as we want it.
Hello, Miss. Can we have a Q&A time for Professor Popley?
Yes. Ma'am Popley, are you still here with us?
Yes, I'm there.
Ma'am, if you don't mind, we seem to...
Yes, please, we'll go ahead.
All right. Ma'am, we have a few questions.
Yeah.
I will read them as they are. Okay, ma'am, so it'll be up to you. So the first question is, what intervention is suitable for social workers to work with children and their families amidst this COVID-19 breakdown while social distancing is required? I think this is for social workers.
Yes, I feel basically the very first thing I will pick up is the social distancing. We are social workers, and in this lockdown, at many places, we have worked as frontline workers. And wherever we have not, I think we should have, and we should try to be frontline workers. So if we are not afraid of social distancing, then we can work with the families or families having problems with the children in the normal way we work like social workers ever. We can do casework with them, we can do online counseling, we can make home visits, and at many places social workers are doing that. So maintaining a social distance, there are many avenues available. We have to take care and we have to take precautions like any other normal person, and we can work with them wherever the thing is required.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I'll read this next question. It says, as you mentioned about challenges of children that can affect adolescent life.
Yes.
As you mentioned about challenges of children that can affect adolescent life, will it be all different for the introverts, the extroverts, and the ambiverts of how the challenges can be more or less effective, or how the challenges can be more or less for the different types of personalities?
Is the question available if I can read it? Challenges of children can affect adolescent life. It will be all different for the introvert, extrovert, and introvert person of how the challenges can be more or less effects. Sorry, I'm not clear about what the person is trying to ask. Challenges of children can be, see, introvert and extrovert doesn't matter if we are dealing with, you're asking about simple dealing of adolescents, or you're asking about in relation to COVID-19?
About challenges children that can affect adolescent life. I think, ma'am, you mentioned about, children growing up into adolescence having adjustmental problems.
Yes, but it was in the reference with COVID-19, because in COVID-19, when people are having a lot of anxiety, you can understand a peaceful childhood would always make a person develop into a more more strong person and more mentally stable person. But if you are living and if you are having a life of uncertainty, where anxiety is there, where fear is there, it will really lead to a person who is having a fearful adulthood, where the person is not certain about certain things. And if the person is introvert and extrovert, I think extrovert person will be able to talk about his problems, his issues. If a child is facing problems and is an extrovert, I think he will be able to put forward what is going on in his mind, what are his fears. But if the child is introvert, it is really difficult to work with the child, and it will affect him more strongly. Okay. That is what I feel.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. The next question is, how can we encourage school-going children to accept and adjust to the new normal when the institutes open up?
I think that is where the parents have to play a very important part. And even when you are having online discussion with teachers, at home, the parents have to make a child understand if it is important to go, what kind of precautions the child has to take, because it has to be now a habit. Because children don't keep social distancing. We are very careful. Even my child is expected to go to school once it opens. So we have started telling him from now, it is a form of life. It is a part of life. Like you go to the school, you keep your bags, you go for prayer. So this is a part of life that you have to keep the mask on all the time. You have to have social distancing. You have to take care of, because we have to teach them that they have to take care of themselves. COVID-19 now is in the state where nobody can help us. Nobody can help us. It is only we who have to help ourselves. If we lose on precautions, if we don't wear masks, if we don't keep social distancing, if we are not taking care of ourselves, then we will be affected by COVID-19. Similarly, this has to be told to the children. This has to be reinforced by the teachers when the children go to schools. And everybody has to, like we said, it has to be in a playful manner. It has to be in a manner where it becomes a kind of a game for them, that wearing a mask, let us have kind of give incentives. The child who was wearing mask for the entire day, and some kind of awards can be given to smaller children. Like in the nursery, we give smileys on their hand when children are very happy with having a very small smiley made by the teacher on their hand. So these kind of incentives can be given to children, and that is how they can be told to accept and adjust in the school.
Okay. Right. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, we're constantly bombarding you with the questions.
No issues.
Right. So, ma'am, we'll move on to the next question. This is about social work education. She says, presently fieldwork has been conducted online for social work students. From your presentation, we understand the anticipated problems like teenage pregnancy during COVID-19. So what steps can students take at their own community level as preventive measures?
No, you're asking about the preventive measures to teach people to take preventive measures, or students have to take preventive measures in their own community?
Ma'am, let me just give the background. Because we cannot conduct field work as according to how fieldwork component asks for, but it's usually because agencies won't accept students You can't go as community programs. So what usually happens is students work in their own communities, in their own neighborhoods. So at that level, when we talk about teenage problems like that, teenage
Issues.
pregnancies are on the increase and all other such issues. So what can students do in their fieldwork, in their communities, as part of their fieldwork?
I feel if they are doing online thing, when it is being conducted online, so in the online mode, one can have webinars and meetings like we are having, and have awareness programs, make them aware of what preventions, whatever we are going to do physical mode. See, online fieldwork is going to be different, where we will be having meetings online. In our university, we have asked the students to work in their own communities near their homes. And they have been asked to take preventive measures. Like I told earlier also, when you're moving, when you're going, then these preventive measures they have to take for COVID-19. So so teenagers have to take the preventive measures like that.
Okay, ma'am. Yes, thank you. I think we can apply that in our respective fieldworks, so at the college level, even at the university level. Yes. Ma'am, there's this question from Francis Zonunmoya. He says, ma'am, you mentioned that this COVID-19 pandemic is useful for the children in terms of parents having time to interact with them more, teaching the children more, developing their children's knowledge and developing their skills. So if the parents are uneducated, or if that family is below poverty line and are unable to teach their children, or do not have access to certain toys, or that even the time or the space, so what would be the impact for them, and how do we deal with such issues, situations?
See, when we say poor families or uneducated families, that doesn't mean, that is what we said, apart from curriculum or the study or the classes or the syllabi, there are many other things to be learned. Even uneducated parents have values. They have certain things that they can teach their children. Lately, there are people who are working as laborers or or working at the grassroots. They also lost their jobs, or they were also confined to their homes. They have very small places. We understand that is why many problems are occurring. Domestic violence is occurring, child abuse is occurring. But that is what we suggested, that rather than having this time as a crisis period, they need to understand that this is a time where we can have together learning. Even uneducated parents from low socioeconomic group, they can work together. They can create certain activities, whatever they are doing at home, they can be together and they can inculcate the values. Well, I'm not talking about the subject or the course or the syllabi or the technical skills. What I'm telling is, many of the uneducated family art students who were in campus, they went back to their houses where parents are uneducated. They got involved in their family businesses. They helped them in their family business, which they were not able to do when they were in their classes, when they were in hostels, they were working. They were helping them in their fields. They were helping them, and they were able to understand how hard our parents are working, and how they are making two ends meet. So there are various ways of getting connected with parents, and it's not only the curriculum that I was talking about.
All right. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, there are a few more questions, three more questions. Will you be taking them, or shall we? It's up to you, ma'am.
Okay, let me see if I can answer, or then we can.
All right, ma'am. This, I think, is, it says, ma'am, can you please suggest a very, very effective physical activity for children so that they will have lesser time for electronic devices?
Many, rather, I think you people have some kind of activities which we used to play in childhood, which is like it is called 7 stones. You keep stones above stones, and then you play with the ball. And basically, we want them to be distracted from the devices. So there can be so many things. There are ground things which we do. There is what do you call tug of war. There is I don't know. You can, but rather you can suggest me what are the indigenous games you have in Mizoram.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
indigenous games that you play. It is the playing with the glass balls.
Marbles.
Marbles, yes, marbles can be played. You have that. You make a gilli danda. You have langri tang. You have so many things. All games. Recall games what you were playing in your school when you went to the school and your outside games. All can be suggested.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. I hope that answers Kimkimi's question. Ma'am, just one last one. It says, do you think the programs and schemes by Government of India is sufficient for children's growth and development, especially for low-income families?
Yes, but the implementation is not up to the mark. We have very good schemes. We have very good programs, not only in the area of children's growth and development. In all areas, if you see, there are many programs. People are not aware of that. I think as social workers, we need to understand, we need to look at the programs. When you people go to fields, this is the time of pandemic, even now, because I think in all panchayat and all gram sabhas, there are now mobiles, there are now computers, or some kind of connectivity has been given to them. So you can call an online meet with them, make them aware about the programs. We can be facilitators as social workers in the effective implementation of the programs. Programs are never bad. Programs are not implemented correctly. There are various programs which can help individuals, but they are not being implemented. People are not aware of it. There is no source to reach these kind of programs. So these can be happening at the panchayat level. You can have meets at panchayat level. All people, make them aware, give them a kind of inputs about how they can apply for those programs and take the best benefit out of the governmental programs.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We won't be asking any further questions. Thank you so much for your time, ma'am. We're really grateful for sharing us your knowledge. Like, this is a really great honor and an opportunity for us to, to learn from you. Tonight has been very mesmerizing. Your presentation, the gripping facts, the gravity of the situation, yet at the same time, you have brought in a strengths perspective and you have clarified our questions, ma'am. Thank you so much. We hope that we would work together on some other occasion again. We hope to see you here in Mizoram again, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your presence, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, everybody. This was a pleasure. I have been to Mizoram twice. And like Professor Kanakraj said, that I have been on the Board of Studies and all. I really find it very mesmerizing. So yes, I do look forward. That is why I said that I hope that old normal goes away and the new normal, a new normal goes away and the old normal comes, where we can meet each other, we can touch each other. That is what children are missing. The physical contact, the physical touch. So that has to come back. The feel of teachers, the feel, they have a connect to teachers. So that cannot happen. We also have that kind of connect with our students. Yes. So taking classes in social work also online is not fun. Yes. We are not able, because due to connectivity, we are not able to see look at the faces of our students. We don't know whether they are able to understand what we are teaching. The reaction is not coming. Sometimes we are unable to put up the video where they will not be able to see how I am. It is. So I also pray that old normals come back and new normal goes away.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. I would like to ask the organizing secretaries, the conveners, to please make any announcements. If Sir Henry is ready, I would like to call the next speaker.
Henry has come. Henry has come.
Okay, sir. So we were calling for you due to some technical sessions. We could not.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Can you hear me, Ms. Grace?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. Sorry. Earlier I was a little bit indisposed. When nature calls, a man cannot
So we understand.
Yeah, control himself. So, but I thought Professor probably would have taken at least till 8 o'clock. But anyway, a wonderful presentation given by her, and of course, pressing times, difficult times, especially for vulnerable populations like children, women, HIV/AIDS affected people, and we have seen a lot of challenges faced by these vulnerable groups in this particular time where the pandemic is at large. So coming back to the topic at hand, where I will be talking about rights and protections of children. Uh, in the keynote address, yes, due to shortage of time, I was not able to, I mean, accumulate everything at hand. But having said that, I have a 1 full hour for this particular presentation. When we talk about rights, when we talk about protection, the reason for its existence is obviously because of, aspects of abuses in all forms. And we know we don't have to say much. We know that children are vulnerable populations. We know that there are various legislations enacted for their protection. We know that constitutions across the world have legislations that protects them, and we know that, and as far back as the 1600s, maybe as early as the 1500s, let's say, we have seen certain aspects of policies in the Western societies as well as in the European societies, American societies, where children have been, indications of children being protected by certain policies. Of course, India is no exception to that. We have a very long history of how children were protected, children were cared for, as far back as the pre-Vedic period. Now, my discussion would focus first on issues and challenges. Yes, like I said, issues and challenges starts from the conception, till a child would have attained 18 years of age. Now, what are those issues and challenges that are being faced? Very sad to say that, as like I told you, although there were indications of the care and protection of children, when we look back, even in the Indian civilization in history, when we look back at the Roman civilization, as far as the Mesopotamian civilization, we do see various indications of care and protection. But nevertheless, the plight of children has always been at large and very much a part of human history. So, in the beginning, let's say that as far as literature is concerned, I mean, culturally speaking, religious texts do talk about a certain indications related to children, though we would not expect so much of indications as we would like it to be, as far as today is concerned. And of course, these indications and of course these let's say evidences results from certain aspects of issues and challenges that would have existed even during a very far past. Let's say, for example, the concept of child was very much unknown, even though children were seen as something that would keep society going. Children would have seen as a sort of blessing. In spite of that, there were many indications. There are many indications today in literature, even in historical books, that indicates the abuses and misuses of power and abuses of children and so on and so forth. The reason for which, even in social work practice, we go as far back as the the development of how social work began. That was in the 1600s, when the Elizabethan Poor Law was passed, and there we see the indications of how children must be protected. Working children, abled children, disabled children, and what are the various aspects that the government, the erstwhile government in the European society uh, would have tried to, want to protect them in terms of this particular legislation. So obviously, these legislations are also indications of the fact that children were being abused. Children had no place in society, and as such, there needs to be some strategic way to handle, the abuses that was taking place against children. Now, and then, when we come to the 1600s, and of course even the 1700s, now we would also see, even in the American society, when the great, let's say, migration took place from the European societies to America, where we have learned in our books about the various movements that took place. We're talking about the the organizations that were established in order to take care of the increasing immigrants that were taking place in the Americas. So and in those, in that great, let's say, migration towards a better life, then obviously there were a lot of abandoned children that existed. A lot of unintended consequences that resulted that became a result of all these social facts that were emerging in society. So and then the Massachusetts Laws of Liberties, back in the 1600s, was passed. One of the few evidences to show that this is a time that we actually need to take proactive steps. And so that was as far back as the 1600s, when we are talking about legislations as far as the issues and challenges of children is concerned. Now, leaving that point of time, now let's go back to the great wars in 1914, and then till the 1919, and of course the Second World Wars that actually ravaged the very rights of children, as well as the other vulnerable groups that existed in the European society during those days. Of course, even India were party to we were, of course, the under the colonial rule of the British Empire, and then we did take part in the war. However, so due to the ravages of war, and the abuses of children, so these a certain policies like the Save the Children Fund in 1919, and of course that led to the 1924 League of Nations on the general Declaration on Rights of the Child actually was established. So these were some aspects that actually led to to some protective aspects of children during those days. And then after the Second World War, it was very much evident that, when such kind of wars takes place, political wars takes place, and even till today, we know that whenever crisis takes place, then the first victim would have been children. So in the 1940s, this led to the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, which was established in 1946, and that was just before the declarations on the of the International Declaration on Human Rights took place, which took place in 1947, 48. During those years. So during those years, it was an epic moment internationally. In terms of a very rights-based approach policies, where various countries were invited to take part in this kind of movement where protective mechanisms could have been implemented across the world. Now, in 1970s, also we saw the evidences of various covenants, the eliminations of all forms of discrimination against women. And in this particular covenant in 1979, we also saw that there was various articles that were evident to protect the girl child. All right, and then again in 1989, one of the main milestone, especially with regards to child's rights and protection, internationally speaking, was the Conventions on Rights of the Child. And in fact, it received so much attention that compared to any other covenants or conventions, let's say covenants and conventions are basically laws, international laws where a country could take part or must take part rather, to protect vulnerable populations, or otherwise they would have been ostracized by the international communities. Although they do have, rights to follow certain provisions of these covenants, this particular Convention on Rights of the Child in 1989, was one convention where it was actually endorsed by a lot of countries compared to, in fact, 61 countries signatories, and then later on, 193 state parties, including India, ratified to the conventions of rights of the child. So these were, like some kind of developments that actually took place as far as, prospects on issues, interventions on issues and challenges of children were concerned. Okay, so after the ratification, of course, I must not forget, coming back to India, India also, mind you, you must not forget that we were one of the few countries that actually played proactive role, after independence, where our late Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, during his time, it was indicated that in his birthday be marked as the International Children's Day in the United Nations General Assembly, but it was actually denied. However, today, the resulting effect of all those roles played by our forefathers, and as well as many child activists in India, today we see that 14th November is not only of India's, but has become an international domain, international day for children, so to speak. So such was the role that India played, in terms of rights and protection of children, so much that even before independence, there were indications in history, in historical texts, where let's say it's like a baby step towards the mark of the Indian evolution in its nationhood, where the Constitution was not yet actually born, but it came out of the let's say I think it was in 1938, if I'm not wrong, where our forefathers, of the Indian polity, actually came up with certain proviso that would protect vulnerable populations in India, and out of that came the Constitution. Sorry. I think I'm a little bit too much into the topic. Anyway, so out of that came was born the Directive Principles of State Policy, the Constitution, where we have a lot of provisions for children in the fundamental rights. And till today, most recently we're talking about Article 21A, where which protects children, where in terms of education, and then the insertion of early childhood care and education in the Article 45, which was actually, which was actually, the provisions that was in Article 21A. So developments are taking place. There are prospects, and of course, if prospects, exist, then obviously it paves way for a lot of intervention, especially for child activists, child rights activists, child care workers, social workers, and other professionals and the like. The United Nations on Rights of the Child, focusing on that. I just want to just focus a little bit on that. I think I still have a little bit time. There are in this article 42 articles. Okay, 42 articles. There are three parts. Now, the first part would cover aspects of soul rights. Rights of people below 18 years of age. The rights to life, rights against discrimination, the right to health. Those fundamental aspects of rights that everyone would like to have, and every civil citizen of the world would like people to have. So that the part one aspects covers that those rights of children. And what is most interesting about the coverages of rights in this particular convention is its overarching concept. Overarching concept would mean, by that I mean, the whole biopsychosocial, cultural, let's say even spiritual aspects of human development, or of child development in this respects. So when one ratifies to the convention, meaning that when one commits to the articles or the rights enshrined in that particular convention, then one country or state country, for example, like a country in India, we are expected to follow this, follow the cover of the whole biopsychosocial, cultural, spiritual aspects of rights related to children. So it's not just some minuscule, right. Okay, it's not just about that. It touches the level of the soul, as one would say. So if we actually understand these rights in its principles and how it was meant for, then obviously the world would have been a better place. But sad to say, very, very sad to say that, today in India also, where we had culture rich on about protective mechanisms on vulnerable groups, we have become quite submerged to various affliction, against man, against man, against man, against child, against man, against woman. So these are what we are facing today. The reason for which, the aspects of prospects and the aspects of interventions becomes usually questioned, okay, by the more, let's say, active players from a very, rights-based approach, angle. So the reason for which even today, I think this webinar intends to focus upon. Now, Dr. Popley has indicated about, about the aspects of COVID-19. COVID-19 is a problem among many aspects, but whatever she has indicated also does apply to many other issues and challenges related to children. Do not forget that. Just because it's COVID-19 or whatever she says, it's just meant for a situation in COVID-19 period. It's also meant for situations in other aspects. Let's say the in aspects of child abuse, in aspects of various, abuse is such a huge word, and it covers malnutrition. It covers it covers lack of care during prenatal stage, lack of care during postnatal stage, and then that leads to various other rippling effects of problems. So all the intervention aspects even from the social work angle would have even applied, in not only not only during this time, but also in other aspects of problems faced by children across the world. Now, uh, uh, coming back to one point, which which came out in one of the queries of the participants. Today we live in desperate times. I'm often reminded of the works of Charles Dickens. It is the best of time, and yet it is the worst of times. So especially for children, just imagine that we're talking about technological advancement, etc., and we live between two worlds. We're hanging in a balance, the afflictions of the old and the new. Not yet ready for the new, and yet not wanting the old anymore. Now, you must never forget that during this mixture of confusion, the genetic of mixture usually transfers itself to children who become more confused about the mixtures and confusions of adults. All right. See, adults also, we can hardly bear the difficulties that we are facing today, and it awes us. It makes us confused. It makes us angry. It makes us depressed. It makes us stressed. And just imagine how the more vulnerable children would have thought in their little minds, with their little head, and the brain that has not yet evolved to its fullest. Okay, so if that is so, then there has to be some some more let's say child-centric strategies of interventions that we must delve upon as professional social workers, or any child work professionals across and around the world. Just because we live in the smallest place, let's say in Northeast, it doesn't mean that the plight faced by children is more different than the plight faced by children in the corners of the Hawaiian island. It's all basically the same, because now one thing that makes us all common is one technology that is imposing itself upon so many societies, left alone children who are facing the dilemmas. And today, what are we going to do as workers? What new strategies, what new models are we going to come up? And these are the questions that we must put in mind in our projects, in our fieldwork activities, in during your bachelor's in social work practice, during your let's say master's in social work, during your MPhil programs, during our PhD programs. These are the things that we must question, and how our models or different models would apply to increase prospects of protection, to increase prospects of improving legislations that protects the rights of children, and improving prospects that would garner better interventions for social workers and professionals across the world. I think I will conclude my presentation for now, and leave questions and discussions round to the participants. Any queries you need, anything I must have missed. Of course, it's the area of rights and protection is a very, very vast subject. I can't just squeeze them into 1 hour bottle. So but any questions, and in my capacity that I can answer, I will help. Thank you so much, Ms. Chairperson. I leave it to you.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. That was a very vibrant and interesting lecture. Sir, while you were speaking, some questions had been dropped in the Q&A box. Before you mentioned regarding the research questions regarding tackling the pertinent areas and the questions for increasing child protection, increasing the prospects of child rights in our communities. So this question was posed by a student, an ex-student, where he says, sir, can you suggest the most effective way to help strengthen the protection mechanisms in the community level as social workers?
Well, there's no best effective way, but there are very, a variety of best effective ways. And, at the end of the day, like we say, in practice, when we practice social work, it's always related to policies, right? It's always related to policies. Across the world, there are a lot of, policies, well-planned policies, best laid plans, as Sidney Sheldon's book would have termed it. Even in India, we have one of the best, more, let's say, affluent people in respects to, professionals in child's rights and activities. However, in spite of that, the problem is the lack of, number one, political will. Now, if there is no political will, then the whole reason for which these policies have been made, serves little purpose, even for people like us in fieldwork practice. Because usually in fieldwork for social workers, who let's say social work practitioners who work across various organizations, they are funded by, let's say, international, or some funded by international organizations, some funded by, let's say, national other organizations, or even the government per se. Now, but if the government, restricts itself, like for today, we are talking about, a very, let's say, controversial, or, something to do with, contributions in terms of international NGOs where, restrictions of contributions are there. So these restrictions would have some kind of rippling effect in social work activities, at the grassroots level. Because if there is no resources, then obviously, the help that we intend to give to children would be affected, right? So first, policies, people who make policies, and the people who implement them in terms of, we have, social welfare administration as a method of social work practice, which sometimes we hardly, use. However, these are very important methods, and these methods must, not only could, but must be made to promote certain aspects of models in the field, so that whatever rules, legislations, and policies that exist out here, could actually benefit the real beneficiaries, and social workers access brokers, catalysts, motivators, and so on and so forth. So the best model is there is not always the best model. We have models that are actually not used. I often tell, a lot of my colleagues, and even in a lot of my presentations, that, let's say, social work has a model called the neighborhood model, for example, let's say. So neighborhood model, if you read the neighborhood, it's so beautiful. In fact, even for Mizoram, it's like we live the neighborhood model. That's what I used to say. Neighborhood model came as a result of the like I said, in First World War, the ravages of war. Now the whole neighborhood feeling was lost. So there has to be some aspects of model that would return people to its present state, of course, through a lot of interventions. I mean, I mean, if a lot of your loved one died, you know, and your whole society demolished, then of course it's gonna be very difficult to get back from there. Now, neighborhood model requires people to get back to their usual form, living that, you know, that close knitted society where we work together to solve a problem. Now, in such a close knit society like Mizoram, for example, this is just one example, and what various, you know, other scholars have said even during this COVID-19 period. You know, coming back to the home, coming back to the neighbors, playing with, you know, talking with the neighbors, leaving technology out, you know, like what we like earlier saying, playing marbles. And, you know, in Mizoram, we call it Indra Barzuante, you know, like all those things are gone now. So these little recreational activities are indications on how you strengthen certain models to be actually powerful, purposeful, and workable. Okay, so I think I hope that you know, explains the question. Hello.
Hello, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. There are few other questions. One here is, how do we empower and protect children during COVID-19?
How do we
empower and protect children during COVID-19?
Well, the protocol is quite good. Stay home, you know, don't go out.
Yeah.
Physical distancing. Teach them cleanliness. You know, that's how we're going to protect them. I mean, there's no other, you know, better protection other than that, actually, you know, even from a social work point of view, as far as this pandemic is concerned. You know, for the reason for which education systems have also been all closed. Okay, so now, okay, instead of how are we going to help children, you know, protect children from the pandemic, let's talk about how are we going to protect children in spite of the pandemic existing and they having to live their, you know, like, let's say, natural lives. I mean, like before, you know, come back to the world before. Now, you know, now they're starting to go to school. Schools are reopening. So there has to be a collaborative effort, you know, like Dr. Popley was talking about the importance of parents, you know, the PTAs, for example, and then, you know, in Mizoram, in a place like Mizoram, PTAs are not very much empowered. So this would be a good chance to empower parent teachers associations, or if they are non-existent, then to establish them in these schools so that there has a collaborative effort could exist. Now, apart from the PTA or the schools, let's talk about, you know, the government, you know, and of course the government will always say that they have less resources, they don't have much, but an attempt to always collaborate with them is always good. All right, to be you know, to strengthen communication, you know, and how protocols change, and to get in touch with the right kind of, you know, knowledge. Now, there was this just one example, you know, inflating wrong information is one thing that we should be very much aware. Now, during COVID pandemic times, you know, a lot of misinformation, wrong information, you know, is hanging around the walls of the walls of technology, social media, and a lot of people do actually believe in wrong information, and which they believe to be right. So to be aware of the right information, to be meticulous about you know, certain things related to COVID, which organizations would have been, you know, more would have given more better information than, you know, just a mere forwarded message, etc. So all these would culminate in a very powerful mechanisms on how you actually look after the home, look after yourself also, not only your children. And that would, I think, be the best way on how we protect children during this pandemic.
All right, thank you, sir. I'll just move on to the next questions. The next question here is, what will be the most effective way of protecting children from discrimination?
You know, the paradox of society is that we tend to differentiate ourselves from our fellow human beings. I should say that for people who have the same organs, you know, for people to have the same brain, same sets of eyes, nose, everything, we sure hate ourselves a lot, you know. So the politics of discrimination, you know, I think our Professor Kanakaraj, as well as, you know, my colleague, Dr. Devindaran, you know, would have a lot of things to talk about on this issue. Now, related to children, why are children discriminated? Children are discriminated because of their vulnerability. All right, number one. Children are discriminated because of no wrong of their own, but the divisions that exist even before they were born in society. All right. So when they are born, they've already been placed, they've already been, you know, let's say, placed in such a misplaced situation that they have nothing to say. They are defined by their parent adults, they are defined by their parent society, they are defined by their parent nation, they are defined by, you know, restrictions that does not allow them to enjoy life, to enjoy the protections enshrined in the Constitution, protection enshrined in like what I was referring to earlier in the various conventions that exist for their protection. So the best way to not discriminate children should start from the adults. Okay, should start from the adults. We were children once, and then we know how it is like to be a child. We have been there once, all of us. For people who have experienced things as a child, we sure do not understand a child, and that is also the greatest irony of life. Okay, and as a result of divisions and these dynamics, you know, negative dynamics that exist in society, we teach them to divide themselves. We teach them to hate themselves. So it's nothing but where they are born that is more important, to change the wheels of discrimination around and to teach children that, you know, not teach children, sorry for my misquote, but to teach adults that it is us that breeds the discrimination and that teaches them to discriminate. Thank you.
Interesting, sir. Very well put. Sir, if you don't mind, I will allow for one more question. And for the last, I would ask both you and Ma'am Popley to, I'll give a common question so that both of you can, go on a discussion. So the last one for Sir Henry is, could awareness of child rights bring about rebellious behavior towards parents and teachers?
Well, actually, for some people, it is bringing. You know, I still remember the CCE, continuous, you know, evaluation, you know, that was taking place in society. You know, that emerged as a result of child-centric approaches, and parents and even teachers were enraged by the fact that, you know, they should not do like this. They should not, you know, see, parents, you know, are the worst parents of all. You know, it's very difficult. and more so, if we were any better, obviously society would have been much better, for the more younger generation. So these are indications of things. But I'm very happy to say, I don't know, there are also a lot of skepticism in this. Just one example, in this new economic policy, which especially the foundation stage, happy to note that it's done in a very age appropriate manner. Okay. However, there are a lot of other things to comply with, because there are certain practical aspects that does not always, that cannot always be, like a theory that cannot always be put in practice, and that needs certain kind of adjustments. Adjustments. So these are some issues where, the more adult population, or the more parent, population needs to adjust ourselves with. So so the only way, I think, that how awareness of rights is of children should be done is, children also don't know their rights. Number one, they don't know their rights as much as we would want them to know. More awareness on the children, because they are going to be the future generation, from a very sustainable development point of view. Now, it's very difficult to to change the taste of an old wine, very difficult, because it has already been fermented, it has already been made as it is, it has already been kept for a very long time, and to undo that would have been quite difficult, and to change aspects of attitude that has been there for so many years becomes very, very difficult, unless they are progressive. Not all progressions are usually positive, but I'm talking about positive progressions. Okay, not something that emerges that is very imposed. So so except for those positive progressive parents who would definitely gulp down the various aspects of rights that would seem alien to them, it is good to inculcate the thoughts of rights, inculcate the thoughts of the principles of rights, to children who would one day grow up and become more vibrant parents than we are today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Henry. This next and last question, as mentioned, is for both for Dr. Henry and Ma'am Popley, for Professor Ushwinder Kaur Popley. Two sets of questions. The first one is, what are or what could be the negative impacts of online class on children or on children's education? The negative impact of online classes on children or on children's education. One. The next question is, are there any child-specific policies at present to handle the impact of COVID-19?
Okay, I'll take the first one, and I think Dr. Henry can even substantiate that. Basically, when we say the negative impact of online teaching, like I said, that physically nothing can replace a normal class. That is where we are facing our students and teacher is in front of them. I think there are certain vibes that are there when you are present offline, and when you're taking the class offline, a kind of connect is created. The the online classes are can have a negative impact in the sense that the students are not able to concentrate in the online classes. The connectivity goes lost. If you look at the technological part of it, the many times they are not able to connect, when they are not able to sometimes listen, or sometimes they miss on something very important that is happening due to online classes. And even for the children who are from low socioeconomic group, they are not having these kind of technologies. So if online classes go on for a long time, because if there are 2 to 3 children in a house, which is having in a low socioeconomic house, and all of them are having classes, one person has to, like I saw, we had experienced, with our own students, that some people were not able to connect at all for the classes. And when we asked them, why are you not? They said, ma'am, I have 2 brothers and sisters. One is in 12th class and one is in 10th class, and their board examination is more important than my classes. So the online classes can put these children back in race. They will not able to take the education means like in the normal class. And I feel the concentration can never happen in online classes, though we can fulfill somehow the material, or some content can be passed on, but that kind of concentration, and even I think teachers don't enjoy teaching. It is a very technical mode of giving information, because when you're teaching in the class, there are many examples. When there is a discussion going on with the students and they are sitting there, there's a lot of things that come up. So I think Dr. Henry can add on to this more.
I agree with Dr. Popley. One thing that we must know is that you can't expect a cub to immediately grow a mane, right? So it needs time for people to get used to things. And online, mind you, it should not be the fundamental way of doing things. It should act as a subsidiary to the fundamental way, approach. I mean, I can't let you taste my wine through the screen. I can't. It won't taste as good as I'm sipping. Similarly, I try to give you an apple through the screen, through this screen. You might not be able to even smell it, let alone taste it. So that is how online classes. It's like in social work practice, we believe in personal touch. We believe in how we touch lives, and it's going to be very difficult to touch lives only through online or through screen activities, etc. And this is going to be a hurdle task to fulfill. Like I used to say, it's better for people to be. It's much better to be with a person than being with a person through WhatsApp, through a phone. And it's very sad to say that adults these days are more inclined to these let's say more virtual aspects of relationship, virtual aspects of things, and at the same time they are not being put to use. Again, the positive aspects are not being fully put to use. So obviously it'll be very difficult for a child who's seen a wonderful smile of a teacher, who have seen the personal touch of a teacher, to suddenly just hear her voice through the screen. So for now it'll be difficult, but if we keep going like this, then there's going to be a lot of things missing. Like I said, you cannot you can never ever defeat the warmth of a mother's hug. So as far as that is concerned, I think all of us would understand what I'm trying to say. So the real offline mode would have been much more preferable than,
I think, Dr.
than
like I can show you practically. Now I'm closing my screen. You people can hear my voice. Yes, I can convey everything that I'm saying, but when I am on screen, when you look at my face, when you see my reaction to the question that you're asking and the way I'm responding, I think that's it is even the theory of learning. When you look at the thing and you hear a thing, there is a difference. And when you touch it, when you go one step beyond, then it will be all the more beneficial to students.
Thank you so much for enriching the explanation, Dr. Popley. And the second one, whether there are, I'd just like to answer two things at this point, because I just saw in one question a very important thing, since it's just 1 minute left. There are child policies, especially in Mizoram. The mechanisms. Of course, applause to the Department of Women and Child Development, to the the state level commissions on rights of the child, etc. They have been working hard, and of course, even the child rights activists also have been actually pressurizing the government to come up with a policy related to children in COVID-19, and they have actually come up with a standard operating procedures on how to take care of children, affected by COVID-19. How parents can escort them, or guardians can escort them where they are not supposed to be left alone. Where they're supposed to be specially treated in this way, in that way. So there is a policy, and I don't know whether this particular policies exist in other states, and if it does not, I hope that social work educators as well as professionals who are actually taking part in this webinar take active part in pressurizing governments, playing advocacy role to come up with policies related to children against COVID pandemic. Now, for now, as far as let's say what do you call that? A different word for children is concerned, that a specific ward, not like a general ward where males, where adults, etc. can be mixed with children, so on and so forth. So we are hoping that a different ward would be actually come up. Yes, a different children's ward, affected by COVID-19. Yes. So I hope these things also follows very soon in Mizoram. But as far as the policy is related, it is there. And of course, and then I'll just include one query indicated by one of the participants about the children's parliament. Children's parliament, very, very interesting. In fact, this there's this in Delhi. I think Professor Popley would have known. In Butterflies. Butterflies is an organization actually taken up by Rita Panikar. Okay, she's a very good friend, a very good mentor of mine. They've come up with these kind of concepts. Actually, they were, I think, one of the few organizations that started these kind of grassroots level platform for children within their organization. And it would be a perfect approach in order to garner a very, let's say, a smooth road towards a more rights-based approach towards children in India. I think that's a very good approach. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, ma'am. That was a very interesting, very vibrant discussion. I think there are several other questions, but for tonight, we have to wind up, because somewhere across the world, someone has to have their breakfast. In India, some of us are going to have our dinner. So I think for tonight, we will say good night. Thank you so much, Ma'am Popley. Thank you, Sir Henry, for your time, for the interesting discussion. We will conclude tonight's session of the international webinar on issues and challenges among children. We thank all the participants. We thank all the resource persons and the panelists. We request all of you to join us again tomorrow night, Indian Standard Time, 7 p.m. Through the same Zoom link. And for participants, a feedback link will be dropped in the chat box. And after filling which, your e-certificates will be sent to you. So this will be done tomorrow night, Same time, 7 p.m. Indian Standard Time, same Zoom link and YouTube links. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ms.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you,
you,
everybody.
Grace.
Thanks for the opportunity given to us for such a nice webinar. And congratulations to all the organizers for organizing this. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to her team.
Okay.
A great
Thank
privilege.
you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. May I request for the panelists, please?
In this webinar, okay? I hope
Turn on their video, please.
your purpose has been served by our presentations. Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir and madam and Dr. Grace. Thank you so much for joining.